So everyone should know by now that we had a video of different questions that we figured Christians wouldn't be able to answer on the Non Sequitur Show. Well, one of the people who actually wrote a paper in response to our questions decided that she was going to make questions that we wouldn't be able to answer as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce SJ Thomason.
I'm SJ Thomason, and today I'm going to present to you 11 questions that atheists cannot answer. The first question: how do you explain why the early Christian martyrs preached for decades saying they saw the risen Christ?
Honestly, I explain this the same way that I would explain Heaven's Gate or Mormonism. Even if we can dissect the original reason the idea came about and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was fallacious, it will not stop the followers of that particular idea from following it. If you're asking me to explain why somebody vehemently supported and preached their idea, the only real answer is that they believed in it. It says nothing about whether or not the claim is true, it just says that they believed in it, and that's all fine and well.
2. How do you explain the rise of Christianity to between 5 and 6 million by 313 when it was finally legalized from such humble roots?
First of all, let's go ahead and get it out of the way that almost all religions have humble roots. Almost all ideas begin with at least one individual and therefore by definition have humble roots. As for how it grew in popularity so quickly, we actually have several more modern religions that grew in popularity just as quickly, if not quicker. For instance, Islam is set to actually overtake Christianity as the most supported and subscribed to religion in the world, and it's only been around for about 700 years less than Christianity has on the whole. I would say that its trajectory has actually been quite faster than Christianity has. Moreover, I think the verbiage legalized is a bit strange here. Rome more so appropriated other religions and brought them into its own culture. It was an empire, and that was kind of the smart thing to do with any religion that you happened to come across in a place that you had dominated. If you find that the yokels are supporting their religion, it's a whole lot easier to get them to accept you if you accept their religion than if you try to impose your own.
3. What powered inflation of the universe?
Well, first of all, it's an expansion, and an expansion is incredibly different than an inflation. For something to inflate, mass must be added into it. You inflate a balloon, you add air to the balloon. You inflate currency because you are adding more currency to the system. From what we've been able to tell, the universe has never had any mass increase, so it's actually not being inflated, it's being expanded. Also, as for what power, we actually don't know what powered it, but the correct answer is always going to be I don't know until we find it. There's nothing wrong with the answer I don't know. I don't know means that we can find out. Putting an answer in there that we're comfortable with that has no predictive capabilities and no model that can be built from it simply placates us and prevents us from pursuing more knowledge.
4. Why are humans spiritual?
I would love to answer this, but the word spiritual has so many different definitions across so many different cultures that I wouldn't be able to know if I was responding to the correct definition. So on this one, I would have to say I don't have an answer because I don't think that the question is worded in a way that I can answer it.
5. Where did consciousness come from?
If by consciousness you mean sapience, then the answer to that is we don't know, but it might have something to do with the fusion of chromosome 2. If you're referring to consciousness as sentience, then every animal that we've been able to observe on the world has a level of sentience, and so I wouldn't even say that it's that special of a trait. How these things emerged? My only guess would be that as life became more complex, it was a necessity for a higher level of thinking to evolve among those creatures that grew more and more complex. For instance, if you look at humans, most people commonly think we have a higher level of consciousness, but if you think about the tools we actually have available, this is something that was necessary for us to survive in the first place. We can't defend ourselves with sharp claws or anything else, so we had to learn how to make pointy sticks. As tribes of people grew, we had to learn how to deal with each other better, and so our brains started to develop better communication devices. As we learned to communicate more, we started fighting with other clans of humans because they had bonded together as well, and these other clans needed to be able to fight with us just as much. So sharp, pointy sticks don't necessarily fit the bill for either hunting, gathering, or defending yourself from other tribes, and so you have to learn to do more and consciousness evolves further. So if we're talking about sapience, I would say chance and necessity are probably the best mechanisms involved.
6. How do you explain what some have called our sixth sense?
Well, first I would like you to define what you mean by sixth sense. If we're talking about sixth sense as in somebody's ability to see danger before it comes precognitively, or any other function of the brain that seems to be higher than our colloquially defined five senses, I would have to say that the James Ramsey Foundation has actually done a wonderful job in trying to get people to come forward with these sixth senses. For decades, they've had an award on the table for anyone who's able to demonstrate any type of abilities that would be considered a sixth sense precognitive or psychic ability. That award has been on the table and unclaimed for decades. So I would have to say that we don't have a sixth sense, but we can definitely be convinced that we do.
7. How did the Earth overcome what MIT and Stanford physicists call statistically miraculous odds to have habitable conditions?
In the Milky Way galaxy alone, there are over 10,000 Earth-like planets in semi-habitable zones. Expand that out to the universe, and you've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Earth-like planets in habitable zones. If consciousness happened to come around in any one of those zones, it would be asking the same exact questions. Take it from somebody who's played any RPG ever or anything that has to do with a dice roll. Statistically impossible things happen all the time. Or take somebody who's playing a game of poker. Each individual hand you can draw from that deck has a 1 in several thousand% chance of happening. Every possible hand you have is a statistically miraculous hand. The only thing that makes it seem special in any way, shape, and form is the fact that you have that hand now. We, in the modern day, have the hand we've been dealt, and the only reason that it is special is because we happen to have it. It doesn't matter that the hand was statistically miraculous, because all hands in a game of cards are statistically miraculous.
8. Why does humanity cherish humility and honesty over pride and deceit?
A lot of this has to do with the evolution of altruism. It's a trait we see demonstrated in animal species of all kinds, and given that we are an animal species, I would definitely assume that we would be able to exhibit those traits as well. Moreover, when you have a society that requires people to work together in order to thrive, it only makes sense that those people are going to have to work together in an altruistic fashion. If I'm in a society of 100 people, and I deceive 3 of them, it only takes word of mouth for a few days for the entire village to know that I'm a deceitful asshole. Once that word gets out, the entire village ostracizes you, and if you don't have the help of those people, you will die. It's a necessity to be honest, to at least a point, in order to function as a member of society and not be kicked out. Just think about the modern job market. If you're deceitful and you're a thief, it only takes 1 or 2 times for no job to hire you ever again. Everything that you have done is now on record and can be used against you. But should you leave a job, it's much easier for you to be hired again elsewhere as long as you are an honest individual at the time. That word of mouth will travel. It has traveled, and it always will travel amongst every type of human society. So as for an explanation as to why we value humility and honesty, it's because it's a necessity for survival to a degree.
9. Why do almost all feel compelled to do what's right by helping neighbors? Why is there a norm of reciprocity?
See the answer to the previous question.
10. What is our greater purpose?
Define greater purpose. As far as I'm concerned, my lesser purposes might be eating, sleeping, and possibly procreating down the line, whereas my greater purpose might be someday being able to use my channel as a platform that I could sustain myself off of so I could keep doing what I love. I enjoy having thought-provoking and challenging conversations with people who have opposing views. This channel has given me an outlet to express my opinions so that they can be challenged, so that I can have those conversations. To me, that could be my greater purpose, at least by my definition. If you mean a greater purpose assigned to me, then I would have a much harder time thinking of that as a higher purpose. It might be a purpose assigned to me by a higher individual, but it's not my purpose. I did not get a choice in that. Just because the purpose is assigned, it doesn't give it any higher value.
And 11. Why is there evil in the world?
Personally, I think good and evil are both useless terms. What's my good can be your evil. For instance, in one sense, I could assume that what I'm doing on my channel to you might be seen as evil, at least to an extent. I'm challenging a faith. I'm challenging a doctrine. It might not just be Christianity that I challenge, but I do challenge religion on the whole. To any one of those religions, what I do can be seen as evil. But to me, when I see other religions, I see a lot of things that I might deem as evil. That's why those terms are a little useless. They're entirely subjective, and they can only have the use that you ascribe them. What would be better is, asking, why is there demonstrably harmful actions in the world? That's at least something we can hash out, and then a conversation can be had. But if you use the term evil, it's subjective from the beginning, and I have to ask for a definition for clarification. In short, though, I would say that the world we live in is not perfect by any stretch or measure. So as to why there's evil in the world, well, there are evil people. Evil people have evil actions, and those evil actions will inevitably be seen as evil by society. Ergo, there is evil in the world. There's also natural evil, like having your son stuck in a building while a tornado rips through it and being helpless to do anything about it. So, may I answer your question with a question? If we're going to use a subjective term like evil, let's use something that is almost universally considered evil. While I can understand that free will is an argument used in order to justify allowing humans to commit evil atrocities in the world, how would you explain natural evil? How would you explain a flood wiping out a village of innocents? How would you explain an earthquake destroying a city and causing mass destruction? If an all-good God does in fact exist, why do these natural evils exist? Again, I'm perfectly fine with the free will argument being used for personal evils committed by humans. My question is solely on natural evil. As always, everyone, a link to the original video will be in the description. I will also be linking SJ Thomason's blog in the description as well, as it has the original paper I responded to a while back, as well as a lot of other articles you might find interest in reading. Links to Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, and Discord will be in the description below. And as always, before we get into the Patreon slides, insert end of video tagline here.